Hi, this is Nancy Boswell, and you are listening to the Listen and Repeat podcast, episode 99. By the way, some of you are listening to the YouTube video. I make the podcast first, and then I also turn it into a YouTube video with the words, so that you can read the words as you listen at the same time on YouTube. So maybe you're listening to my podcast, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. Either way, thank you very much. So this is To Build a Fire 5, based on the short story by Jack London. So listen and repeat. Try to copy how my voice goes up and down. That's called intonation. Try to copy my intonation and my pronunciation so that you can improve your English speaking. Listen and repeat. At 12 o'clock, the day was at its brightest. Yet the sun was too far south on its winter journey to clear the horizon. The bulge of the earth intervened between it and Henderson Creek. Where the man walked under a clear sky at noon, and cast no shadow. At 12:30 to the minute, that means exactly at 12:30, he arrived at the forks of the creek. He was pleased at the speed he had made. If he kept it up, he would certainly be with the boys by 6. With the boys, of course, means with the men. Often, at least in the U.S., maybe everywhere, we might say boys or girls when we mean men or women. I'm going out with the boys, or the girls and I are going shopping. Just an informal way to talk about men and women. He unbuttoned his jacket and shirt and drew forth his lunch. Drew forth is a fancy way to say take out. And I hear some music outside. I started this when it was quiet. You know, I'm recording this when I'm on vacation in Vientiane, Laos. And I'm staying at a nice place, a little out in the countryside, but there's neighbors, and sometimes normally there's some music or talking or radio or TV or something. Yep, I hear a little music. Sorry about that. When I started this, it was all quiet. Okay, let's go on. I do the best I can. I don't have a professional studio for my podcasts. The action consumed no more than a quarter of a minute. Yet in that brief moment, the numbness laid hold of the exposed fingers. He did not put the mitten on, but instead struck the fingers a dozen sharp smashes against his leg. Then he sat down on a snow-covered log to eat. The sting that followed upon the striking of his fingers against his leg ceased so quickly that he was startled. He had had no chance to take a bite of biscuit. He struck the fingers repeatedly and returned them to the mitten. Baring the other hand for the purpose of eating. He tried to take a mouthful, but the ice muzzle prevented. You read or you heard in the other episodes that there was ice outside his mouth from breathing out and from chewing tobacco. So that's a strange picture. I'm not sure what it would look like, but having ice in front of your mouth, and he couldn't even eat. He had forgotten to build a fire and thaw out. He chuckled at his foolishness. And as he chuckled, he noted the numbness creeping into the exposed fingers. Also, he noted the stinging which had first come to his toes when he sat down was already passing away. He wondered whether the toes were warm or numbed. He moved them inside the moccasins and decided that they were numbed. Yeah, so he's really cold. He's in danger of getting frostbite. And it appears that because it's so cold, he's not thinking very well. And I believe that's a symptom that shows that you're very cold. You're not able to think as clearly. That's why he didn't build a fire to get warmer. He pulled the mitten on hurriedly and stood up. He was a bit frightened. He stamped up and down until the stinging returned into the feet. It certainly was cold, was his thought. That man from Sulphur Creek had spoken the truth. When telling how cold it sometimes got in the country. And he had laughed at him at the time. That showed one must not be too sure of things. There was no mistake about it. It was cold. He strode up and down, stamping his feet and threshing his arms, until reassured by the returning warmth. Then he got out matches and proceeded to make a fire. From the undergrowth, where high water of the previous spring had lodged a supply of seasoned twigs, he got his firewood. Working carefully from a small beginning, he soon had a roaring fire, over which he thawed the ice from his face. And in the protection of which he ate his biscuits. And remember, this is not British English biscuits, which Americans call cookies. This is something that's closer to bread. Biscuits are not sweet. For the moment, the cold of space was outwitted. The dog took satisfaction in the fire. Stretching out close enough for warmth and far enough away to escape being singed. So the verb is to singe or to be singed. That's how that's pronounced. When the man had finished, he filled his pipe and took his comfortable time over a smoke. Then he pulled on his mittens, settled the ear flaps of his cap firmly about his ears, and took the creek trail up the left fork. The dog was disappointed and yearned back toward the fire. This man did not know cold. Possibly all the generations of his ancestry had been ignorant of cold. Of real cold, of cold 107 degrees below freezing point. But the dog knew. By the way, it's funny to read about cold when I'm in the jungle. I'm in such a very warm place. When I left Nanning, I was wearing a long-sleeve shirt and a sweater, and now I'm in Laos, Vientiane, the capital of Laos, and it's short-sleeve weather. I think that's how it usually is here, quite warm. So it's funny to read about cold when actually I'm in a very, very pleasant place. Where am I? Let's see. But the dog knew. All its ancestry knew. And it had inherited the knowledge. And it knew that it was not good to walk abroad in such fearful cold. It was the time to lie snug in a hole in the snow. And wait for a curtain of cloud to be drawn across the face of outer space, whence this cold came. On the other hand, there was keen intimacy between the dog and the man. The one was the toil slave of the other, and the only caresses it had ever received were the caresses of the whiplash and of harsh and menacing throat sounds that threatened the whiplash. So the dog made no effort to communicate its apprehension to the man. It was not concerned in the welfare of the man. It was for its own sake that it yearned back toward the fire. But the man whistled, and spoke to it with the sound of whiplashes. And the dog swung in at the man's heels and followed after. Okay, sorry for the noise in the background. Now I hear someone talking. The owner of the hotel I'm staying at said he thinks there's something going on at the local temple, and that must be the sound coming from somewhere. Okay, so thank you for listening. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you have a good day.